Hello and welcome to CSM Mastermind. My name is Andrew Marks, co-founder of Success Hacker and the Success Coaching Training Program. We're back for our monthly live webcast today focused on success plans. This free learning event is brought to you by Success Coaching, the world leader in customer success professional development training with more than 5,000 graduates globally. Our popular virtual boot camps run monthly. We offer 12-week coaching cohorts 3 times a year. We have an accredited online learning-based multi-level CSM certification program. That's a mouthful. And a number of standalone courses, all taught by industry experts. You can find out more about our training programs at successcoaching.co. And Ashley will drop that into the chat window. For those of you new to this series, this is a live and unscripted discussion where we dig into a single topic that's relevant to customer success. This here is the only script that I follow during our time together. We aim to pick topics that are going to be practical and useful to you, so I encourage you to suggest topics and or panelists for our learning event. So reach out and connect with me on LinkedIn and drop me a note. Tell me what you want to hear about and who you want to hear it from. The schedule for our upcoming events can also be found at successcoaching.co. Click on the events tab at the top and you'll find out more. We will be posting a replay as usual of this webinar along with a transcript early next week. We'll be on our website as we do with all of these events. And you can also find it in our YouTube channel. Make sure you to subscribe to that as well. There's a lot of thought leadership out there along with a lot of theories about how to deliver customer success. This mastermind series allows us to focus on the practical and give you real-world advice, best practices, techniques, and shared experiences from those out in the wild practicing customer success on a daily basis. And to do that, we invite 3 panelists to join me for a roundtable discussion. These are people who are great at their craft, and we ask them to share their experiences and their perspectives. This learning event is for you. And we will be taking questions, so get ready to use that Q&A functionality at the bottom of your Zoom window to ask or upvote a question. Also, please use the chat window just for commentary. Without further ado, I'd like our panelists to introduce themselves to y'all, talk a bit about who they are and what they do. Let's get started as usual in alphabetical order with Gavin.
Hi, I'm Gavin Cummings, currently the Director of Customer Success at Overops. Where we show people where, when, and why their code breaks. And we're looking to enable dev teams to improve their code. I have been in and around engineers and developers for goodness, the better part of over 10 years now. And prior to that, I was in the military where I was doing aircraft maintenance and focused on Lean and Six Sigma, which is I could rant all day about how that's a part of everybody's life, whether or not they know it. So excited to be here, and I love the Success Hacker stuff. So this is an awesome opportunity. Thanks.
Thanks, Gavin. And Gavin and I have had the opportunity to record a couple of Moments of Truth, my webcast. So check that out as well. We had some good conversations there. Gemma, you're up.
Hi, everyone. I'm Gemma Cipriani Espana. I am the Vice President of Customer Success at Chili Piper. We are a SaaS that make meetings happen, and we do this through having the most advanced routing and scheduling software out there. Most of our users tend to be sales, demand gen, marketing, and CS professionals, which is awesome because I'm very passionate about working in CS, also very passionate about success plans. In fact, I collaborated with Success Hacker, Aaron Thompson, on building a success plan template, which you can still download from the Success Hacker website. So very happy to be here today and swap notes with Gavin, Sherri, and Andrew.
Thanks, Gemma. And we need to do a Moment of Truth recording. So we'll get something scheduled.
We do. Yeah. Looking forward to that.
Excellent. And last but not least, my friend and fellow webcaster as well, Sherri.
Thanks, Andrew. Hi, everybody. I'm Sherri Rebnik. I'm the head of customer success in the U.S. for Searchmetrics. We are a global SEO and content marketing software platform. You may have heard of us no matter where you have been, where you are. We are headquartered in Berlin, globally, with offices in London and right here in the States out in San Mateo, California in Silicon Valley. I am based in New York. If you have not figured that out yet, you will. Just give me a couple more minutes of speaking. As Andrew said, I've been here with him a couple of times in a mastermind and some moments of truth. Yep. Some of you might also know me from Gain, Grow, Retain community and other places within CS. I'm super passionate about it. I've been in SaaS for the better part of a decade. And I'm just really passionate about all things customer facing and how we can help people be successful. So this should be a good conversation.
Excellent. Yes, it should be. Once again, we all appreciate your time today. So let's get to the topic at hand, success plans. So planning for success is crucial, and it's at the heart of customer success as an industry. If you're working in customer success, or if you're just working directly with your customers in general, you know that you can't support them properly without a plan. And developing success plans is an important activity for all CSMs. But what really makes a success plan successful? Where does it start? You know, I think, can we all agree that success plans are important?
Yes, I'll agree with that.
Yes.
I agree with it, but I do think there are times when it maybe doesn't always make sense to have a success plan.
Okay, and well, tell us more. When does it not make sense?
Yeah, so I think, you know, the reason why you have a success plan is to uncover your customers' motivation, right? So if you do have a product that has a very, very clear value proposition and it's very clear why people have gone to get it, then maybe the need for success planning is not as important as, you know, a product that has more of a complex set of use cases. So if I was to compare two examples, right? If you're if you're subscribing to a Spotify subscription, do you need to fill out a form before saying why you want Spotify and what you're trying to do with Spotify? I think it's pretty obvious. You just want to listen to music and, you know, create your own playlist. But if you're in the process of, I don't know, planning your wedding playlist with your DJ, at that point, the stakes are really high and it's not quite clear what your motivations will be for that party. Then, you know, that's where you kind of need a success plan coming into place. So I think it really depends on the product, but, you know, working in SaaS, we tend to be more of that B2B focus than B2C focus.
Yeah, well, Gemma, can I ask you on that? Because I think you're spot on when it comes to it does depend on the product. Mm-hmm. Even in a simple product, when you're talking an enterprise relationship, B2B, even if it's very simple, the value proposition is simple. Do you think that a success plan for an enterprise is a must-have, or do you think there's ever a time where you wouldn't do one if you're working with an enterprise customer?
So I think you've hit the nail on the head there with the enterprise segment, right? So I think at that point, if you have a simple product, but you're selling into a complex business, like an enterprise business that has lots of different teams, lots of different silos, then yes, absolutely, success planning is required. So I think, you know, that distinction on customer segment also makes a difference in the need for a success plan.
But I would challenge, and I agree with you 100%. But I would challenge this notion that when I sign up for Spotify and they ask me a bunch of questions and they suggest a bunch of things for me to, you know, based off of my tastes and the genres that's not an automated success plan.
Yeah, I guess it kind of is, but it's, you know, maybe they do ask you some questions around like your music taste, but I think you can skip it and still get value from the subscription, right? And I think that's a distinction. There's sometimes where you will not get to value if you don't have a success plan, right? So if you don't have a success plan, you're entering that subscription, that partnership with the hope that they know what you want. And that's where it becomes a problem, because you can't sell based on hope, right? You have to have an action plan in place.
I've unfortunately worked with some salespeople that sold on hope. Sherri, you got something?
No, I was just going to say, so, I mean, it just sounds like, and I would agree that it can, first, I always hate saying it depends because so many of us in CS, like that's the answer to everything. And I know it makes a lot of people want to pull their hair out because they were like, well, is it this or is it this? But sometimes it really just depends. So in this case, it could depend on not just your product, but also your customer segment, right? You may have a simple product, like to Gavin's point, but if you're dealing with in your B2B and you have an enterprise level client who may have multiple teams, as simple as your product is, it may be valuable to understand the motivations behind each team that's using your software so that you can provide the right type of guidance, even if it's super simple. And maybe that guidance is, customer education led or something a little bit, along those lines. You can make sure that they're following the path that will lead them to value, but you have different cohorts within that particular segment that you're appealing to.
So let's bifurcate this conversation a bit, and let's talk about enterprise, right? Where we know we definitely want a success plan, right? And those that are listening, what we'll do is let's see if we have time. We'll circle back on the smaller, right? What can we do to automate that type of thing for smaller opportunities or simpler solutions. So assuming we've got an enterprise customer enterprise class offering, where do we start with building that success plan? And what do we need to be good at to extract the information that we need in order to fill that success plan out?
I'll jump in here for a second. I think, and this is also, I'm speaking from experience and things we've been doing over the last year or so in this. I think what's super helpful is also getting involved before in the sales process and starting that discovery then. And making sure that you've got the right people in the room too, right? It's not just the executive sponsor, but you've got the people that might be leading the teams or leading like the power users that are in charge of that, understanding what their goals are and having those conversations. And I can give you an example. Like I said, we're SEO and content marketing, and SEO is a long game. So they may shoot out a goal or an objective and, you can say, that's great, but that's a 12-month goal. Then you can start breaking it down. What's the first milestone that you would want to see? And then we start digging in there so that by the time they sign on and we get to that kickoff, we start already building out the framework of who the people are that need to be involved, putting some of those tasks in place that lead up to certain objectives so that we can say we've seen value over the 30, 60, 90 days. And I can, get more in depth there, but I think we need to start earlier than just when the customer is, signed on and we've had the handoff from sales.
Especially when we're dealing with the enterprise, for sure.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. I think, talking from my experience at Decibel, which is now a Medallia company, we was only servicing enterprise brands, right? So bringing in the success plan was critical because we needed to de-risk the decision for these enterprises to choose us, right? As we were a startup. So why would they choose us instead of choosing IBM? As an example, and going in with a success plan pre-purchase that shows, here's how we've done this with other people. Here's the people you need to give us to make this project a success. Here's the kind of things that we can help out with. Are these what you want to do? Is there something else you want to do? Here are the use cases and metrics that we'll use to measure success together and milestones, as you were saying, Sherri. That can really change the dynamic pre-purchase.
Yep.
A conversation that is more about getting them ready as opposed to just trying to close the deal.
Well, and from what both of you have said, this is gold right here. Not just from when we should be involved, but when you start thinking about, I think, Sherri, you said, thinking the long game. Customer success is a long game, right? That's the whole reason we exist, is because just we don't make revenue unless we've had a customer around at least 2 to 3 years. And our job is to get them to stay around. So it is a long game. But to Sherri's point, we need to be able to break that long game down into consumable steps for value along the way. Just because sales put together a proposal and the customer thinks that they're going to save, X millions of dollars here over the next 1, 2, 3 years, it doesn't mean that we can't go after the individual incremental successes along the way. And I think that's where it's important to have that strategy, that long view. And this is where actually even success plans are separate from onboarding plans. I think that's also another very distinctive caveat to make. Your onboarding process should have a success plan as part of it, but the success plan is not the onboarding process. And the onboarding process doesn't necessarily mean you have a success plan in place. So to Sherri's point, I think breaking this down into incremental, measurable value points and wins is hugely important. You can't wait till after 1 year to show some value. You need to do it quickly.
And those are the leading indicators that tell us, hey, we're making progress towards that ultimate desired outcome.
Yeah,
that
exactly.
And that's why success plans are, the cornerstone of our outcome-based selling methodology, right? Let's get involved, in the latter stages of the sales cycle, and let's make sure that flows all the way through. Right, and you are going to assure your customer that the promise and will be reality, right? Because the folks who are responsible for making it a reality are involved in the promise making, right? It's not two completely separate, disjointed groups.
Yeah, but it's also that alignment, right, with the customer, because it's a two-way street. So it's not just, here's what we're going to do for you. It's here's what you need to do as well. And I think that's very important when you have multiple stakeholders that are required to, get through onboarding. Onboarding being the first hurdle, and then after that, it's like driving adoption and re-onboarding and continual use of the success plan for it. But if you can't get time booked out in your stakeholders' calendar to dedicate to, working with your customer success team, then the project's not going to work.
Exactly.
It's off to a bad start, before you do that. Yeah.
Well, isn't that also part of the success plan too? That would be the beauty of it, is it creates that accountability and that partnership. Like you said, Gemma, it's not, this is what we're going to do for you. This is how we're going to partner, and we're going to help you achieve your goals, because you have accountability here. Like, it's partly here, but I'm going to help you get there. And that's what this plan is here to do. So it helps to, I think, also foster the relationship and have them take some ownership over their own success, because I think ideally onboarding too is the idea for onboarding is for customers to be able to act independently in your software so that they can achieve their goals, right? Mm-hmm. You're helping them along the way, of course, on certain areas, but they can't talk to you 24/7. And then you can use that success plan to check in on where you are on those pieces.
Yeah. And think about how often teams change, or they sign the contract and then the person who bought it has just left. Or, the developer is just nowhere to be found. When you have that, you can push back on your executive sponsor if you have one, or find a new one and say, look, you're basically not going to make the most of this investment.
You have to have the executive sponsor. I mean, that right there is full stop, right? If I don't have an executive sponsor, or I don't have a proxy for the executive sponsor that is dialed in and is consuming that success plan, and is somebody who can remove the blockers and communicate to the team the importance and all that stuff, it's like, whoa, red flag, right?
But when you lose one, it's like your success plan is also your handover document to that new person, or whoever's taking on that responsibility.
Joint ownership is so important.
Yeah, and to your point, Gemma, too, like what you said, even if you have your executive sponsor, but say your power users or some of your champions leave, that success plan will also help you get that next person up to speed as well. And this might bring this conversation somewhere else, but I think it's also the basis of your EBR or QBR, because it shows where you started, where you are, and where you're going.
Yeah, 100% agree. The success plan should be the tool that you're using to demonstrate progress as part of your business review.
Yeah, so the more people you have involved in a process, the more complicated things are going to be. And by nature, enterprises have a lot of people involved in them. And then depending on your team, you have more than just a CS individual involved as well, right? You also have sales going on in that account. You have support going on. You could have 5 or 6 different people from your own company talking to 5 or 6 different people from the enterprise. And without a joint success plan that's been developed, not only with the customer, but with your other internal stakeholders involved with sales as well. If we're not all supporting one plan, that means we either don't have one or we all have our own. And that is communicated to the customer. When you're not in sync, when you're not knowing what's going on, or you have different goals and objectives, which sometimes can easily happen inside of organizations, then it's hard to keep the conversation focused. And we were talking about keeping it focused with people changing, coming in and out. Man, if you don't sometimes start to feel like you're sounding like a broken record, I mean, that's right on the edge where you want to live, because you have to repeat yourself. Because if you have a 30-minute conversation, you're going to have multiple to get that next objective completed. I have not yet. I think it's only been a handful of times where we've had one conversation, laid out our goals, and we came back and the customer had completed everything by the next month, and we were all lined up and we weren't taking anything forward. And we said, yay, we've made it to the next spot. It takes effort. It very rarely just happens.
Now, for those folks that have an existing customer base and want to introduce the concept of success plans, I mean, how do you go about it? It's one thing to when you're getting started, new customer, you go through that discovery process. If you're following the outcome-based selling type of methodology, you're getting involved late in the sales cycle. So building the success plan, very natural part, of just what you do. But what about you've got a situation where, okay, we're going to introduce success plans into our existing customer base. Anybody have any experience with that?
Yeah.
Go ahead. I was going to say, we just recently did it, but please go for it.
We did this too.
I'm interested to hear everyone else's as well.
Everybody's got something to say. Okay, Sherri, you go.
So quickly, we did this about a year or so ago. Obviously easy to start with the new clients because, hey, that's the easy stuff. But how did we start, bringing it into the current clients? Now, we also, not everyone, unfortunately, is getting a success plan. I had to, just because right now with the size of our team, our customer base, and bandwidth, and where we needed to have the cutoff. And it's made sense so far. We introduced it, I want to say at the beginning or right before the beginning of last year. So it was easy, I say with quotes, air quotes. A lot of our customers, they're planning for the year and their objectives more so a lot of times in Q1, they're ironing that out for the rest of the year. So that we can have those conversations as what's your goals for the year. I mean, you can look up that stuff online if they're publicly traded, if their CEO has said something, that kind of thing. You can start to have those conversations, what's going to be on their whiteboard for the next 90 days, what's coming out of those discussions, because you want to help plan for success. So you can introduce it. That's a good organic segue for customers that already exist. Or depending on when their planning and budget cycle happens, you can kind of coordinate with that. It could also, if you lose an executive sponsor or your champion, that can be a way with someone new. So it helps them onboard and ramp up, because not only are they learning the ropes of a new job, now they have to get acclimated to all the software and the different vendors that they use. So those have been two windows of opportunity for where we can dig into the current customer base and how to engage them and how to kick off a success plan with them.
Gavin,
I love what you said.
You had something?
Well, I think it's worth starting with, it does not have to be complicated. It's probably better if it's not. And Gemma, it sounds like you helped develop the template that's on the Success Hackers website. So thank you for doing that, because that's a fantastic start to what you want to do. Honestly, it really is fantastic. It's simple, it's straightforward. And I've taken something similar to that placemat approach where it's all in one place. So Gemma, thank you for that. I'll say that because I've referenced that and it's fantastic. I think it's just a matter of starting with something simple, identifying some key important pieces, and really say, this is where we're going. And this is how we're going to get there, right? It's dead simple out of the gate. We can get more complex with it. We can dive into other value. We can put, there's a whole conversation about the art and science of qualification and validating everything on your success plan. I think someone asked a question about how alive is it? I'm always validating things on there, but you'll find that it's going to settle into specific things that are important to the business and certain things that are important to the executives. And it shouldn't deviate from that too much. If it does, it's because there's a whole lot of new things being introduced. But all of that to say, start with something simple and start asking the appropriate questions, which means you're not doing all of the talking in your EBRs and your QBRs. You're asking some questions and you're doing some more listening as well.
Yeah, simplicity is key, really. And I think particularly with existing customers, you've got to think about where their mindset is. So, new customers, they want you to guide them. They want you to give them the best practice. Some of your existing customers, they might not want that. Their priorities are elsewhere. They already have what they need from you, your product and your services. So you have to really prove the value of success planning to them when you're introducing it to them as well. And I think simplicity helps. Some other methodologies that I found really useful is to take a similar approach to how you would respond to NPS, using a customer health scoring mechanism to drive success planning approaches. So if you've got green customers, customers like green health, then the conversation is along the lines of, you're leading the pack in our customer base. Like, you're a strategic client. We want to understand what it is that we're doing that makes you successful according to our measures of success. We want to know what we can keep doing, if there's something we can do more of. And you take that success plan maybe as an opportunity to turn more into a career plan, even for that champion that you're working for, right? Because you've already got a lot of the outcome stuff nailed down. Or maybe you use it as more of an expansion opportunity. How can we raise your profile by using the success that you've had in another department, and so on and so forth. If they're a customer at Yellow Health, then the question is more around, what do you wish you could do with us that we're not doing today? And if it's red, then it's, we've got this new success planning mechanism in place and we want to use it to turn the ship around. And, here's a template. Here's some examples from people who are, similar persona, similar industry, facing similar problems that you do. Would any of this be valuable, or is there anything else that, we can do here?
Okay, cool. All very interesting angles to get in, with your existing customer base. All very viable. What about, why don't we take some questions? Q&A, by the way, is at the bottom of the screen. But let's see what some people have to say here. What have we got? All right. Justina. I hope I'm pronouncing that right, Justina. Justina asks, I'm interested in hearing about what tools your teams use to develop and share success plans with customers for that important collaboration and ownership accountability. And it looks like Gavin wants to jump in first on answering that question. So go for it.
Yes, there's some amazing tools that we have. I started with Google Slides and PowerPoint to get something up and running. And I find that that's often easiest, depending on the CS platform you have as well. But just able to share something with your screen. It looks simple. It doesn't look the most polished thing in the world, but sometimes that is helpful. If you can do a whiteboard, which has been hard the last year, I'm all about the whiteboard and having that plan there and being able to whiteboard it. I find just a text template is also very helpful to walk through a customer with. It's easy to share. And then currently I've got it centralized inside of Salesforce so that it's a place that my sales team is in. I am in, everybody is in the same place, looking at the same template that's most live. And we actually use Lucid charts in there to make that work. So I guess the point here is, again, keep it simple and don't let the tools or the method, don't get hung up on that. It's just helpful to get it started, honestly, with some of your key customers. Get it started with whatever you have. You don't need tools to make this work.
And it's a living, breathing document, remember. So it's going to evolve. It's going to evolve over time. It's going to evolve as you pass milestones. You're going to want to set new ones. I mean, we've used stuff as simple as Google. What's the Google presence? Google Slides.
Yeah.
Google Slides, right? And then we also keep a history, right, of the Google Slides, so you can show your progress. Hey, look where we were when we started, and here's where we're at right now. Sherri, you got, what do you use?
Yeah, we use, we're a Microsoft org. So we use what we started to use because we had something in Excel. But to be honest, having the template there was great, but it made it really hard to evolve it without, like, how do you keep what was there before? Because you want to keep seeing things, and it became a little cumbersome and messy. So we transitioned to using Microsoft Planner Board. So similar to Trello or anything like that. It's great because we can create different buckets for each main objective and then break everything down into those cards. You can color code for different groups. You can, have the checklist, which is really the tasks that need to happen to achieve the objective. You can add comments, you can upload documents and files, and you can share the board. So it's been really helpful because once a card is completed, it hides, but you can open everything up and you can see all of the things you've completed. They don't go away. You can use the chart functionality for Planner Board to see visuals of how many tasks are still open, how many have been completed, how many people have tasks assigned to that kind of thing. So it's been really helpful and it's dynamic, and it's a nice visual where you can keep track of things.
And now you mentioned something, and I don't want to gloss over this because it's super important. The sharing of the success plan, whatever format, whatever tool you use, you have to make the sharing and the consumption of here's where we're at as simple and as frictionless as possible, right? Because one of the reasons why we came up with this one-page success plan methodology is because senior executives, people say they have a short attention span. Actually, they just have a lot of stuff on their plate, and they got to go really wide and can't go too deep in certain things, right? So you can't give them any excuse for not being up to date on what's going on, right? And when it's a one page, and their ultimate success is tied to how things are progressing on that plan, they're going to read it. They're going to consume it. That also drives that joint accountability when everybody else on the team knows that executive sponsor is, sees what's going on, is paying attention.
And you could assign a task in Planner too. But when you do share it with them, especially in a meeting with your client, it's not just the board, but like I said, even the simple visuals that Microsoft provides of just seeing like where you are to a goal or how many tasks are outstanding, just those visual and sometimes the colors can help you say, okay, we still have a ways to go, or we're midway through where we thought we'd be in this this plan is for this 90-day period, right?
Right.
Because for us too, it may say, sometimes the plan can be what's on your whiteboard, what has to be off your whiteboard in the next 90 days. And that's a good way to build a plan too, especially with an existing customer. So that way you can see, are you going to hit that 90-day goal?
Gemma, anything to add?
Yeah, I think, we're hearing a lot about templating, and I think that's so important more than anything from an enablement perspective, because you need to make sure that whoever's owning that success plan, most cases it's going to be a CSM, that they really understand why the template is built the way it's built, right? That they know how to ask questions to get the right information back into the success plan. But you need to be able to flex. It's template and flex. If you're working with Microsoft and your template is in Google, then you better switch to MS Office in sharing that success plan if you don't have a CS tool that they can access. If you're working with Facebook and they want to talk and work through Facebook chat, then you better move over to that. So you have to meet your customers where they are in the success plan. And
Yep.
that's a big point that can make a huge difference. You can do all this work on something, but if it's like impossible to access, then it's kind of wasted work.
Exactly. All right, let's answer some more questions here. Lupe asks, I have clients that get excited at the beginning of their journey or plan and then get stuck in the yellow. The issue is typically they're too busy. What do you do to get your clients active and re-excited to reach green?
That's a good one. And that's hard. That happens. Like we said, I think earlier, our clients, we're not their only vendor. But I think that there's a couple of things here. It's, when I was in the day-to-day with a client years ago, I would always kind of leave it with homework in the sense of, okay, we're working towards this. In order for us to take the next step, you have to have X and Y completed by the next time we speak. Can you do that?
Right.
Get their confirmation, get their agreement. Remember, it's a joint plan. You're helping them get there by kind of, can you achieve that? And, you might have to follow up on that. If, you're trying to drive them towards success and helping them achieve their objectives, I don't think it's a bad thing to have a conversation with them saying, hey, we need to realign and reset or manage expectations here. You needed to achieve this. How important is that for you today? And where is that, for example, using the whiteboard, where is that on your whiteboard? Try to start with your person. I mean, I would leave getting to the executive sponsor if this was something you heard from them to a little later on, because you might have to invoke the leadership if needed. But I would just have a frank conversation with them, because it may be less about the success plan and more about what's happening with them. And maybe we need to reset and realign. And that could be an opportunity for that.
The key is having that conversation, right? And part of the success plan and even in our one-page success plan are key actions, right? That need to be specific activities that are going to be, and those specific activities are things that are going to move us closer to the desired outcome, to that milestone. Specific activities with specific dates, things need to be time boxed, right? Everything needs to be time boxed. And the name of the individual or the group that's responsible for getting that action, that activity achieved. That drives your joint accountability. Once again, that's something that is shared across the entire team, including the key stakeholder. And you don't want to have to go tell dad or tell mom, right? That, hey, you know what? They're not getting their stuff done, right? But that in itself, though, should be enough. And if it's not, you can remind them, hey, listen, your executive sponsor wanted it done by this date. And we laid it all out in the success plan. All of these are dependencies in order for us to achieve that.
Right.
It's not my goal. Tell them that there's a delay. I don't want you to have to go tell them that there's going to be a delay, because the person who signed off on this thing, the key executive sponsor, did not just buy your solution because they felt like spending money. Right?
It's not my goal. It's yours.
Exactly.
It's tough love. I'm trying to help you.
It's tough love.
It's tough love.
It's tough love. It comes down to the success plan. The success plan is the vehicle.
It is.
Have the right conversations with the right people at the right time, and find ways to realign and reset expectations, and kind of just give them a nudge, because sometimes, or what do you need? How can I help you get to this so that you can reach that goal? What do we need to do?
But the key is we put something down. We say, here's the plan, right? It can be 1 page, it can be 2 pages, as long as it's not too long, right? It's got to be, here's what we're trying to achieve. And we're all on the same page, not make assumptions. Well, I think that your definition of success is X. No.
And this is where you got to put the coach hat on, right?
Right.
If you've ever had athletics, or man, goodness, even no matter what you're in, if you had to learn from somebody, whether it's music or coaching with athletics, most of your best instructors were not very timid with you. They didn't send you an email and say, could you please just set aside some time for me so that we could kind of try and get these things done? I'd really appreciate it.
Yeah.
No, there are times, right, we need to be indirect, and there are times where we just need to say, look, this is what we had agreed on. You know that I'm giving this status report to basically everybody involved with this project on a weekly basis or on a bi-weekly basis, right? This is going out via email. We haven't shown progress for 2 weeks. How are we going to break this stalemate? Do you not have the resources? Do you not have the time? What's going on there? And those conversations are perfectly acceptable. If you can jump out and have those conversations and make it be a little uncomfortable, it should be, because as a CS person, you're being graded on how well you get this done.
Yep.
Your organization is saying, please get this done. Their organization is looking at them and going, how are we doing? So it should be uncomfortable for both of you if it's not moving forward.
Yeah, I mean, it's easier said than done, though. Right?
Yes.
Like, all of this, and then it comes down to, it's like a huge customer spending millions of dollars, and you've got to hold them accountable to a success plan, and you want to also keep the relationship strong. And I think two things that really helped me with enabling the team around those kind of challenges. One, there's a book called Crucial Conversations that's like great for anyone who's looking for some executive training, but it's also very helpful for customer success managers in understanding how to have critical conversations with people and hold them accountable. But another easy trick is to hold them accountable, but ask for permission before you do it. Right? So if there is, for instance, a key stakeholder, let's say it's a developer, who is just not prioritizing something that needs to be done to move the project forward, you can go to that person and say, it's been this amount of time since you haven't been able to complete this thing. I understand you're busy. If I don't hear back from you in X amount of days, I will be going to the executive sponsor just to keep them informed that we're going to be behind schedule. We're already behind schedule. So you ask for permission before you do it. And most of the time that will work and kind of kick things back into action without actually making them look bad to people who are senior to them. And that's really the best outcome.
You're threatening them, but nicely. I mean, you're doing it. I'm going to go tell. I've got to go. Don't make me have this conversation. But you're doing it. That's the right way to position. I'm just saying that tongue in cheek, but that's definitely the right way to do it. But you have to do that. We have to be in our role. We have to have difficult conversations as part of this job. You can't be afraid to have those difficult conversations.
Yeah, if you put the work in, you can do it, right? You can't do that if you haven't actually put the work in behind the success.
Agreed.
So that's,
Agreed.
And that's so huge. That's so huge right there, is putting the work in. And I think this is something that, especially as we get busy, our customers are super busy. It's not often that people are trying purposely not to do things or not get things done. And I think it is important to keep in mind, what are we asking our customers to do? And is it adoption on our time schedule, or is it adoption on the customer's time schedule?
Well, but if you're building a success plan together, though, then the adoption should be on their schedule based on what their availability is. And that's what they're signing up for. Yeah. Right?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, and I think what I'm talking through is the reality that sometimes those are hard. They are hard to build together. As Gemma rightly pointed out there, it's easier said than done in a lot of this. And I think you take where you're at, but you do make sure you're not asking for too much, even if you're the expert on what your solution is, and you're sitting there representing that it's pretty easy for this customer to get there. They might say yes to it. even though in their organization, that's a difficult task to complete. And so we need to make sure that we just keep in mind the pacing that they can actually go at, and how many things are we asking to do at once? Because we all get ambitious at the start of a project and on the outset of all of this. And we should keep in mind that this is, again, the long game. And how do we make sure we stay on track over months, not days?
Well, and that's why it's just as important that we're pushing back when we don't think based off of what we know about the customer. And this is where that success planning becomes so important in the pre-sales phase, and and then gaining alignment and the kickoff, making sure that the key stakeholder and all of those contributors below that key stakeholder are in alignment. But we need to be able and willing to push back when we think that, instead of just telling them what we think they want to hear, telling them what the reality is. Right? Better to do that now than to have to clean up a mess, 6 months from now because we're missing our delivery dates.
Yeah.
Let's see. Pervez asks, from a data perspective, quantitative, what are the possible metrics that you use to measure the effectiveness of a success plan? I think this is it's unique for each product. You have to, you might have a kind of a list of the kind of the typical desired outcomes and quantify them, but it's going to be very dependent on the solution.
Yeah, I think you need to prioritize based on the impact, and to measure impact, you need to have KPIs, and oftentimes you need to get those KPIs from your customer. It might be that your product doesn't actually provide those KPIs, and that's when it's really, really tricky, and where you've really got to have a strong relationship to get that information from your customer. But then you also have to take into your prioritization level of effort, right? Because if the level of effort to do something is really high, then it might not be something that you prioritize quickly. And then I think, everybody wants to see a success plan that has key objectives and milestones being met. They want to see progress. They just don't want to see something that's stuck. I think that's the big piece. It's hard to quantify it on aggregate, although there are tools out there that can. I mean, like we're moving objectives that we have in custom fields in Salesforce in our CRM into PlanHat's customer portal, which will allow us to do more of that kind of aggregate, like how many objectives has this CSM closed off and across how many customers. But that's kind of like the holy grail where you want to move towards. It's not so necessary as just having the success plan up to date on an individual basis.
So the direction that we've taken this is akin to developers have a concept of a minimum viable product, right? Yeah, this is the minimum specs that we need to meet. And I think this goes into health scoring and other things of what are your minimum success criteria? If they're doing X, Y, and Z, we know this is at least a minimum level of success to meet the value they want. Pervez, the reason that question is so hard is because I think that's the hardest part of what we do is actually getting the customer to agree to things that they are tracked on, specifically with metrics. Our sales methodology that we follow at OverOps is very heavily tied to MEDDIC. You can go look that up, but focusing on things like metrics and leakage of the business to figure out what the health of any kind of deal, or in this case, our existing customer, is huge. And getting the answer of how, if you ask a customer, how are we going to track success? What does success look like to you? That's a very hard question for them to answer as well. And so there's a lot of effort that we need to put into individually be able to identify those, surface them, and then see those to completion. So outside of even just key objectives, identifying what we're actually measuring for success, I think is one of the trickier parts of CS, because we'll get a lot of not quite answers and a lot of objections to that. And we have to be prepared to overcome those. That's a very deep conversation, I think.
Well, it's hard for a lot of people to totally verbalize what their, what those objectives are sometimes and quantify. But we have to.
We have that a lot.
Yeah, I bet.
So,
and how do you deal with that? How do you handle that, Sherri?
So there's so many things I had in my head from what everybody was saying. Hopefully, where that's become a challenge is more. It can be with existing clients, but sometimes we have new clients where we weren't really involved in the sales process, and now we're in that kickoff call, and they can't really articulate a proper goal or something to measure upon. So instead, I don't want to waste time, or I've instructed the team, we can't spend $1 million, keep pressuring them. It may need an executive conversation, and that's something on the side, but how do we keep moving forward? Because we can't just say stagnant and just sit there stalled and not move forward, because we still need to onboard them. So you can put together a success plan with milestones around, are there multiple teams? How many people need to be onboarded? Getting them onboarded by a certain amount of time. Look, maybe trying to drive milestones around what we know would be healthy adoption and usage of the software, so we get them acclimated, because then you can say at the end of the 30-day period, or however long your onboarding takes, look at all these milestones you've achieved. And when people feel like they've achieved something, it kind of, you puff up a little bit. You feel like, okay, we're doing something. And then hopefully by then you've had the conversations too, where you can get to the point, okay, we're almost done here. So when we meet next, we're going to start talking about how we're going to move forward, like what our next accomplishment's going to be. But you don't want to waste time in the beginning and just spend 2-3 customer conversations trying to get them to articulate a goal, and now you haven't got anywhere, and it's been a month since the contract started and you're not doing anything yet.
So it's okay to be prescriptive.
Yes, if you have to. Yeah. If you have to. And back, I think, Gavin, you had said something, but Caitlin put something in the chat about where the success metrics within a success plan, or how to measure whether a success plan was effective. I think it can be 2 things. One, what's your NRR, your retention? Are they retaining? That would be the ultimate goal, as if things were successful. The ultimate metric, in my opinion. But if you want to look at, like I said, was this successful, what you had in the success plan, you do have to get things. I think, Gemma, you said it too, about what are you measuring against? So for us with SEO, I want to increase the year over year, say for like a university. We want to build up online registration or on our online business, and we want to increase enrollment by X% year over year. Great. What was your enrollment last year? What is the typical amount of traffic that you get to that particular cohort that you're looking to achieve? Get all of that stuff from them so that we can start measuring that. So we can look at those metrics year over year, look at our look at the traffic. Are we doing the right things? You need to know things from them, because you need to have benchmarks.
Right. Yeah. Benchmarks and baselines are huge. Absolutely agree.
I don't know if you intended, Gavin, of clicking done for Shelby's question. I know you were going to answer it, but she had a few upvotes, so I wanted to mention that. Can you talk about closing out success plans? I'm finding it very difficult to mark objectives as complete for a number of reasons. Some examples include customer deprioritizes project, customer doesn't take required action needed to move project along. And other examples, if a customer says they want to meet X goal, I show them the feature, which is an upsell that will help them meet that goal. I've done everything I can to ensure customers are aware of our solutions they can leverage to meet their goal, but customer doesn't have budget or onus is on the sales team to close out feature, upsell, etc. It's a lot there. And I think we talked about some of that.
Yeah. I think I felt like we had covered a good chunk of that. Ultimately, this is I think that's just the difficult role of being in CS, right? Yeah. I mean, there's all of these factors None of our organizations are the same. If you haven't figured it out yet, we're still learning how to do the CS stuff. In a lot of places, it's not set in stone. The only thing I would say there is on the ownership side, take ownership for what you can and take ownership for the pieces that are within your control and do those excellently. And then try to bring in other folks. It sounds like that might be a situation where doing that success plan with the sales team might be helpful before sitting down with the customer and getting them to sign off on what's there, maybe suggest some metrics as well. It's hard to answer those specific type of situations, but I think there's definitely some conversations there to be had.
So Liz asks, can you help explain the difference between success criteria and measures of success? Some examples would be excellent. So Liz is referring to our one-page success plan. I can jump in, but any of you want to take a stab at it first? Okay. So your success criteria is, okay, what is the criteria? It's just like it sounds. What is the criteria by which we will have achieved success, right? Is it we want to increase efficiency? We want to improve developer efficiency by X, or we want to improve developer efficiency. We want to improve SEO. I don't know what help me here, Sherri. What is give me a success criteria for SEO?
It could be they want to increase increase downloads of their white papers from their site because they're not e-commerce. They could be lead generation. That's how they get leads. So
right. So those are kind of the generic success criteria. And then the measure of success is I want to increase downloads by X%. Right? It's quantifying, right? So one is the actual criteria. The second is the measure of success is the actual quantification of that measure, right? What that does is it gives us something to point at and say, hey, we hit that 20% increase. So we've achieved this was part of your desired outcome. We've achieved your desired outcome, right? There's no more of this. There's been this tendency for people to make assumptions, right? Instead of actually putting down on paper the specific success criteria and how we're going to quantify achievement of that success criteria. So that's what the difference between the two is.
But
anybody
also,
else want to weigh in on that?
One quick thing, and I think, Gavin, you said it before, but it's also asking them, again, what their measure of success is.
Yes.
And it doesn't even have to be specifically to the success plan. One of the questions we like to ask, you can ask it in the pre-sales process, which is a great place. You could do it in the kickoff call too, is let's fast forward 9 or 10 months from now when we're looking to, talk about our partnership going forward. I never like to say renewal. Like, what does our partnership look like in the future? What's going to make this, when we have that conversation, what's going to stand out to you as being a success? What would you look back on over these last 9 or 10 months and say was success? And then also conversely, what would set this up to fail? And where does that, and start asking those questions and dig in, because it's not just the success plan. You also need to understand from them what they would consider valuable in a success or a failure.
100% agree. Sherri asks, how do you manage your position when the customer success plan is going to require more extended services, product upgrades that are going and it's going to cost the customer? What's the best approach to bridge that gap? So you put together a success plan, and now they're saying, "Oh well, we want this and this and this."
That's where I think CS, we can't be afraid of sales. And I think we're kind of moving a little bit more towards this. I think we can't be afraid of what sales is doing and some of the methodologies that have really worked. Let me put it that way. I think this is a conversation about value. There's a reason why you think this is going to take them to a better spot with adoption with your product. And you do believe they are going to be in a situation that is far better than they are today. So it's helpful to quantify that. If there's actually some value there that you can tie to justification for that extended service or product, you should justify that and get your sales team to help show you how they justify cost in the sales cycle. Justification is very different than the initial sale, right? So go ask for help in figuring out how to do the justification and to putting that on paper, because depending on who you're talking to, they're going to have to take that to someone else to ask for the money, which is really hard to do. And that could be some hesitation in there.
Well, but couldn't this be a situation where you had a key stakeholder that made the purchase, but when you got into the meat of it with the folks who are going to be using it on a day-to-day basis, realize that, hey, the key stakeholder underbought?
Oh, yeah. I mean, that happens too. And in those situations, I think you need to make an internal discussion and decision whether or not you are willing to invest more in this customer moving forward, to perhaps get them up to a certain level of success, even though they didn't purchase it. And they can know that, obviously make sure that they know the effort you're putting in, so that when the time comes to extend the relationship, I like how Sherri put that instead of saying renew. When that time comes, we can, true up to some, for lack of a better term.
Yeah,
exactly. Yeah.
That's why it's so valuable to have the success planning happen pre-purchase whenever possible, right? To avoid that kind of scenario.
Exactly.
Absolutely.
Or having that key stakeholder is key on the, even if you don't do it pre-purchase, but we 100% are in alignment on the pre-purchase, but in that kickoff call, having that key stakeholder has to be part of that kickoff call.
Yeah.
Sorry, Sherri.
No, it's okay. It's like Gavin said, it's, you kind of have to lay it all out. We can help you get there, but you have to tie it directly to their objectives. If you can, show that connection, that dotted line, like you want to do this is what's going to happen, that is going to be helpful. There's another way to approach it. I think I heard this somewhere. It's some kind of, when someone wants to do something, it's like a yes or no answer. No, we can't do it. And there's neuroscience behind what happens to your brain when someone hears no. So I don't remember where I heard this. This was a while back. It's give them the conditions under which you can say yes. So yes, this is what you want to achieve, but this is what's going to happen. In order to do X, we can do it, but this is what you're going to need based off, based off of
new set of requirements, right? On the new set of requirements you've given us, right?
Right. So you can pose it in a way it's outcome-based selling, right? Yeah. You want these outcomes. It's this. It's value. It's what do they want to achieve? Is it tied directly to their goals? And then we can do this. We need this, this, and this.
I think the best scenario is you've got the we can do this, and you tie like what Gavin said about the value that you get out of that. We can do this. It's going to cost this much, but you get this value. But by the way, what you bought was this, and you still are going to get this value, right? So you're giving them, to your point, Sherri, you're giving them something to compare to, right? We can get you where somewhere. It's just not where you want to be right out of the gate. And
Sherri, Jim,
there could be a budgetary issue, right? Mm-hmm. That you're dealing with.
I'm actually curious, is this something that you guys train on in your organizations? Is this specific situation and these, how do you guys handle those upsell conversations with your CS folks? Is that something that they're generally experienced at having those, or how do you guys prepare a CS to have that conversation?
I have a small team. They're all pretty senior. I don't think they would, oftentimes, I don't think that they would think they're selling, but they are. And that's part of the beauty of it.
Gotcha.
Because they're focused on more on what the customer needs and the value. But it's not highlighted as a sale. Yeah, they'll say we got an upgrade at the end. And they might be focused on that and how it provides value. But I often think that it's helpful for them sometimes when people get frozen by I'm selling, that they're not thinking about it. But one of the conversations that I just had with some other people in my organization that are also in client-facing roles is, again, tying it, how do we tie it back to what their goals are? Oh, they've used all their resources. Great. We should upgrade them. Well, do they need it? How can you tie it back to their goals and start having that conversation? And if you have the success plan and you are working with them regularly, it makes it a lot more seamless where it just doesn't come out of nowhere.
Right.
Hey, what are you working on? Oh, you might need more resources. Great. Here's a contract.
Yeah, at Chili Piper, we are a highly technical CS team. So we're really focusing on ensuring that there is license utilization for what's already been purchased, and we focus on driving that as much as possible. The byproduct being, more customer retention. But the team are enabled to be very, very curious so that they can get to the ask for the upsell or the add-on, or the cross-sell. They can get to the ask and pass that over to an account manager who's kind of responsible for that net retention number directly.
And let them negotiate.
Exactly, yeah.
Terms.
Yeah.
So Caitlin asks, what do you do to ensure that the customer provides the data you need to prove you were successful? Sherri mentioned increasing university enrollment by X. What would you do if they were resistant to provide you with those figures? Listen, what Sherri does from New York, she just turns on her New York is what she does.
Listen, The Sopranos was in the next state. The Wire is also on the East Coast.
Right,
no, I'm kidding.
So what would you do? What would you do if you knew that you needed that and they didn't want to provide it?
It's really funny because sometimes it does feel like customers are trying to catch you out. They're like, no, I don't want to tell you what success we're having. I don't want to give you my metrics or measurements of success because then you'll charge me more. So I think, honestly though, I think that's where it comes from. So I think you have to build trust, right? You have to do what you say you're going to do.
Yeah.
And deliver on expectations and really build trust with them so that they're comfortable sharing it with you. Oftentimes, if they're not, it's because maybe you're not speaking to someone who is experienced enough to know how to get the best out of their vendor. And then it's really helpful if you ask them, well, how are you working with other vendors and what works really well with how other vendors are working with you? What can we do that you like from another vendor? To try and demystify whether that is an actual fact. The cause here that you're not talking to the right person or you're talking to an inexperienced partner.
Sherri gave a fantastic answer to this already, in that she said, fast forward it.
Okay.
Fast forward it. That is huge. If you're not used to fast forwarding it with your customers, and this is something our CEO has been awesome in teaching us how to handle some of these conversations. Play it forward. This person, if they've not purchased enterprise software before, how are you going to justify this to procurement when the time comes? We're going to have to put together a case for this. We're not going to be able to escape it. How are we going to justify it when that time comes? And that is such a fantastic question because it puts them in a spot to have to think to that point in time and address it now instead of waiting for it and then saying, well, hey, what can we put together to say we did something? No, let's think about this now because we're going to get there. We always get there. That renewal always comes, and we have to have the conversation about whether or not this product is worth it. So I think fast forwarding it is a huge asset here.
Yeah. People don't buy products like this to fail, right?
Yeah.
Bree asks, what about when your customers are fully using the product and it doesn't feel like there's anything else to go into a success plan? Is there ever a point where a customer is past having a success plan?
No.
I 100% agree with you.
I know the challenge can seem like, well, where do we go next? Especially if it's a new client and you're like, okay, we did all these things. Bye-bye. Talk to you, see ya. It's been really good. I think that always a question, you heard me say it 3 different times earlier. My friend Bob London, if he ever hears this, he will appreciate it. What's on your white next 90 days? Or, those kinds of things, asking them what else they're working on. Like, what is their, because they may not realize that You got to start the conversation.
Yeah.
So I think the success plan is the ultimate goal, but don't get too far ahead of yourself. Have the right conversations with people. Start asking good questions. Dig into what what they're telling you, because you'll uncover something, or it's something that you can build upon. And it doesn't have to be some big convoluted success plan. It could be one objective. Great. That might take you 3 months. I don't know what your software is, but don't overthink it. Don't think it has to have so many things, because oftentimes the most successful things are the simplest ones. I never like to think with goals. And when we do a kickoff, like 3 is the limit, because then you're trying to boil the ocean. We have 6 big objectives. Well, let's scale that back, because then we're the jack of all trades, master of none. And I don't like that. So I think it's just starting to have the right conversations, asking them what they're working on. Again, if they're a public company, set up your Google alerts. What's going on? Has the CEO made a statement? Say they do, I don't know, athletic wear, like an Under Armour. And the CEO said, we're going after, our biggest category this year is shirts and shoes. Okay, great. What are you doing? How does that affect your part of the business? Start using that. Find ways to have the conversations. And again, even if it's one goal, it's something that you can start pushing them towards.
Do your homework. Anything else, Gavin? Gemma, this is the last question we can answer. So we're going to wrap things up.
So I think it's the purpose of a CS team to find ways to continue to add value to the customer, even when their original ROI is met. So I totally agree with what you've said, Sherri. I think another important piece of CS is to bring that alignment back to product, right? So if we build a success plan template and we've ticked off everything against it for that persona, what are we not helping them with? Like what's on their whiteboard, as you were saying? Our product team needs to know that. They need to be building more products around that. They need to be building those measures of success, ideally in the product, so that we don't even have to do as much work on the success plan itself, particularly on the capturing of the metric side of things. So I think there's always the opportunity to expand upon the success plan itself.
There's always something. Gavin, any last words?
No, I have nothing to add to that. Those were excellent answers and right on the head.
All right. Well, we're at the end of the webcast. I think it went well, but it's not what I think. It's what all of you think. So please let us know by posting your feedback on LinkedIn and tagging either myself or Success Coaching or any of my phenomenal guests. I want to thank you for spending the time with us today. All of you for the ideas, the thoughts, the insights, the best practices that you shared. It was a great conversation, as I expected. One final note, great CSMs know they don't have all the answers, but they know where to get them. That's why we created the CSM Mastermind, to harness the knowledge and experience of the community to help improve anyone and everyone. So we hope that you got something out of this discussion. We'll see you at our next event on July 21st, when we'll discuss how to effectively partner internally when helping customers achieve their desired outcomes. Until then, please have a great rest of your day, week, and month. Stay safe and stay healthy, everybody. Bye-bye. Thanks, Bye. Gavin, Sherri, Gemma. Wonderful. Great conversation. Appreciate it.
Yeah.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah.
Great.
Thank you.